Awareness Challenge. If you're not aware of it, there is a link that I will post in the comments so that if you'd like to join us on this challenge, you will be able to. So all of the details are going to be in the link below in the comments for you so that you can go ahead and join us. Okay, so day one of the challenge, we're supposed to introduce ourselves and talk about the diagnoses that we have received. And I'm sure that lupus is going to be one of them. But because lupus tends to have a lot of overlapping illnesses, I'm sure that there are going to be a few that will be mentioned by you guys. I certainly do have a few. Okay, so who am I? Well, my name is Gina, and I'm 47 years old. I'm a mother of three and a grandmother to a beautiful 1-year-old granddaughter. I'm also an artist. I'm a designer. I'm a writer. I worked with several community organizations in which I did art-related projects. I've worked in quite a few different fields within the community. For the last, well, actually, prior to the last 3 years, I was an art and sculpture teacher at a local private school before I got sick. And I was there for 11 years before lupus kind of forced me to shift my vision a little bit, if you can call it that. Since becoming ill, I've become an entrepreneur where I'm still an artist, but I'm using my art in helping to heal myself. So basically, I'm using art therapy as a treatment method for my illness. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail later on as to how I use the arts as therapy and for healing, so as not to make this video too long, but that is definitely going to be part of the discussion on another day for this challenge. So what have I been diagnosed with? Well, I was diagnosed with lupus in 2012. This discussion is going to, I'm going to start with lupus in 2012, but I'm going to go back to talk about a few diagnoses that came prior to that because my doctors feel that I might have had lupus for quite a while. And with all of the diagnoses that I received, nobody ever thought to test for lupus, but just kept tacking on one diagnosis after another. And I'm going to lead up to the day that I actually got diagnosed and then what has happened since. So in 2012, I got diagnosed with lupus. Prior to that, it was just one diagnosis after another. I was diagnosed with emphysema in 2005. It was also the same year that I was diagnosed with my first heart diagnosis. That was back in 2005. And on that particular day that I was diagnosed with the heart problem, I actually fell asleep sitting up in a chair with my 3 kids. They were having fun in the swimming pool. And this is just something that I've never done before, was sitting up in a chair, because I'd always wondered how people could actually just fall asleep sitting in a chair, in a rocking chair, whatever the case was. I was always baffled by that. But this particular day, I fell asleep. And I remember waking up and the kids were not there. Everyone was inside. and a few hours had to have passed. So I'm all flustered, and I get inside and I'm checking to see where everybody was, and they all looked at me and said, "We're fine. We just thought you needed a nap." I knew something was wrong at that moment because it was just not typical of me to fall asleep sitting in a chair. So I decided to take myself to the ER, and at the ER, they determined that I had a heart problem, that I needed to see a cardiologist like the very next day after leaving the ER. So anyway, got the first cardiac diagnosis, and at the time I was diagnosed with supraventricular tachycardia, which meant basically that my heart rate was running extremely fast. My fastest recorded heartbeat at that time was 248 beats a minute, and my doctor was still kind of baffled as to how I managed to sleep through that. At the time, I wore a Holter monitor, and right now I actually have an implanted loop recorder, and I'm pretty much attached to the hospital or my cardiologist's office, and they monitor me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But back then, I just wore a Holter monitor for 48 hours, and they managed to pick up the fact that my heart was just at certain periods just running extremely fast, and the fastest was 248 beats a minute, which was fast enough to put anyone into cardiac arrest, but I'm still here. So I continue to be monitored, obviously, because I have the loop recorder implanted, and I see a cardiologist on a regular basis, in addition to all of the other specialists that I'm sure you all are familiar with. So I got diagnosed with pernicious anemia in 2012. I kept complaining of tingling in my fingers and tingling in my feet, numbness in my feet, pain, and no one could tell me what was going on. And this went on for quite a while. So eventually they took blood work and they found out that my B12, I was severely deficient in B12. So they started all of these B12 shots every month, and this went on for several months, and it wasn't helping. I was diagnosed with pernicious anemia at that time, but the B12 shots just weren't working to alleviate the tingling sensations that I kept having. So I was sent to a neurologist, and over a period of 2 days, I went through quite a bit of testing. And it was basically to see how my nerves were functioning. It was called a nerve conduction test. On the first day, they basically, they touch you with this device that shocks you. It's not extremely painful, but painful enough. And they do that on your fingers, your hands, over your arms, down your legs, your feet. And the second day that I went in happened to be my birthday. And the neurologist looked at me and said, "Well, why are you here?" I said, "Well, I'm here for the second day of testing." Well, he was aware that it was my birthday. He said, "No, why are you here?" I said, "Well, like you said, I needed to come in for the second day of testing." Then he held up a needle must be about this length, and it was attached to a cord, which again was attached to a machine. He said, "Do you have any idea what I'm about to do to you? So why are you here?" I said, "It's my birthday. I'm aware of that, but just let's get this over with." That needle, or whatever you want to call it, was inserted into different areas along my legs, along my arms, and then all up and down my spine. By the time I left there, I was in so much pain. I basically drove home and crawled into bed, and this was my birthday. But at the end of the testing, he said to me, "I don't know how to tell you this, but this is the worst nerve damage that I've seen in somebody your age." And he was very familiar with me. I was a martial artist. I took very good care of my body. I was aware of what went in. And, I was in tip-top shape. So he couldn't understand why my nerves were so shot. And he said to me, "I'm going to recommend to your doctor that you get tested for lupus." And I said, "Okay," not letting him on that I had no clue what lupus was. So I went back to my primary care over the next few days, and he expressed to me that he was going to send me to get tested for lupus. At that time, I was a little bit more knowledgeable because I came home and I did some research and I found out exactly what it was, to a certain extent. So he sent me to get tested, got blood work done, sent it in, came back positive. So I said, okay, well, I finally have something to blame for why I've been feeling so cruddy and for all of the issues that have been going on. I finally have a name to attach to all of these issues. And he said, well, I don't believe that you have lupus. So I'm going to send you to get tested again. So back I went to the hospital for more blood work, and it was sent off to a special clinic this time that was, it took about 3 weeks. The results came back about, wow, I want to say about 7 or 8 pages of details confirming that I had lupus, and it was a systemic lupus. So he said, well, I guess you do have lupus. Now we need to start treating it. And he mentioned Plaquenil and a few other things, and he got me started on them right away. And 2 days later, I ended up in the emergency room near cardiac arrest. But that's a whole other story. In 2012, obviously, I got diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy in addition to being diagnosed with lupus. Actually, the very next year, I couldn't deal with everything that was happening. I was scared. I really was scared, even though I'd gone through, I'd had a near-death experience, 15 years prior to that. But I had kids, and it really was scary to think that this disease could kill me, even though, I had already beat death once, and to me, I felt like I was pretty fit apart from the little health issues that I was dealing with. But this really scared me, and I started to get really depressed. And I contacted a psychiatrist. And at the time, also, this is what I forgot to mention, I started to hallucinate and found out that the Plaquenil that I was taking was causing me to see things that most people wouldn't see. But let me go ahead and tell you what I was seeing. I started to see angels. I started to see angels everywhere. The first time I was out in my garden, and all of a sudden this bright light just appeared. And I was wearing a big hat. I was all covered because, of course, with lupus you have photosensitivity, and I love being in my garden. So I made sure I was well protected, sunscreen, big hat, clothing that I was covered. But all of a sudden, it just got really bright, and I looked up, and there was just a pillar of light. And then two things that looked like wings just went up, came down, and it just shot straight up in the air. And at other times, I would see angels in the backseat of my car. I would see angels just walking, and I told my psychiatrist, I said, I think I am losing my mind. And I was crying because I knew that he probably was going to say, yeah, you're right. I really thought I was going nuts. And he looked at me and he said, I don't think you're crazy. I think that those angels that you're seeing are there to protect you. I think you need to look at them as being your guardian angels. But I want to check something out for you. You said you were taking Plaquenil. And he looked it up. He said, hallucinations is the first side effect of Plaquenil. But if you do start to see anything else, please let me know. I said, guaranteed I will. Trust me. So I continued to see the psychiatrist every 3 months, and he did allow me to come in every month if I really felt I needed to. And there were a couple of times when I went in every month or every couple of months. But since he didn't seem too worried about me seeing angels everywhere, hey, I wasn't going to be. So, but I was severely depressed because of everything that I was having to deal with. So I was then diagnosed with depression. Shortly after that, I developed extreme shortness of breath, and there was this really bad pain in my chest that just refused to go away. And I went in on two separate occasions to get tested, and thought I was having a heart attack because I do have heart issues. And my EKGs kept coming back saying everything was fine with the heart. So the second time, the doctor said, let's have you lie down on the table, and I'm going to check something out. So he started poking around in my ribs, and he said, I found your problem. They were hurting when he was doing that too. He said, I found the problem. You have costochondritis. And I looked at him and I said, I have what? Well, I found out that costochondritis is basically arthritis in your rib cage, where the soft tissues basically get inflamed. They really do hurt. And today I had a flare up of that because it started to rain here, and it was kind of a struggle to breathe because I could feel all of the sponginess. And that was back in 2014 when I got diagnosed with costochondritis. It just kept getting better and better, right? You all probably familiar with all of the diagnoses that keep getting tacked on. Well, of course, I also battle with iron deficiency anemia, and I was going in for one transfusion or an infusion, one right after the other, and it got to where I ended up having a full hysterectomy back in November of 2016. That was pretty much the only way of alleviating, well, at least helping to, because I started to bleed, and I bled for about, wow, I think my last episode was about 6 weeks straight. And prior to that, it was bleeding for about a month, having 2 days break, bleeding for another 3 weeks, maybe 4 days break. So I was constantly bleeding, and it just got to where I said, you know what, enough is enough. If that is going to help with the iron deficiency anemia, let's just take it all out. So we tried one surgery that didn't work. We tried the ablation and it didn't work. So I decided, okay, I tried it your way. Now let's do the hysterectomy and get it all out. And that did seem to help, even though my iron levels just seem to keep dropping. So I have another checkup to see what it's doing there, and then probably I'll have to have another infusion. But this last year, I think I had about 6 of them. So anyway, that was iron deficiency anemia, which I still battle with. I also have the vitamin D deficiency, which I take 50,000 IUs of vitamin D per week. I also have migraines and ice pick headaches, and the ice pick headaches I really can't do it. They literally come, stab me for about maybe 10-15 seconds. I scream, I cry, and then they just go away. I tend to avoid bright lights, flashing lights, that sort of thing. I'm one of those weird people that wear my shades inside when it gets really, really bright. So you probably know what I'm talking about. And recently I was diagnosed with pectus excavatum, which is basically where the sternum in your chest is caving in, which could cause problems if it does tend to get worse, because it could push in on the heart as well as the lungs. And I've already got lung issues and heart issues, and it could cause a lot of problems there. So that was my latest diagnosis. Prior to that, I was also diagnosed with an immune reaction in my eyes. So I'm basically being screened for Sjogren's. Sjogren's, I think I'm pronouncing it right. I have to use special eye drops in my eyes to kind of help with the excessive dryness. And I think that's about all of my diagnoses. Oh, I did forget one. I do have notes that I'm looking at periodically because, like I said, there's just so many diagnoses that I've received. My last one was POTS. It's not an official diagnosis, but I'm being evaluated for POTS right now through my cardiologist. And so every morning I get up, I have to take my blood pressure lying down, then sitting up, and then standing up. I have to take special medication where I have to take extra salt. Most people, you're told to cut down on your salt, but I'm being told to kind of increase my salt intake. So those are my diagnoses. now. Well, I've enjoyed sharing with you on this day 1 of the Lupus and Chronic Illness Challenge. Like I said, if you would like to join us on this, the link is going to be posted just below in the comment section, so you can check out that video, and there will also be a picture that shows from day to day what each question is going to be. So today was day 1. It's not too late to join. Keep checking back each day for the next video. I'm going to be doing 30 throughout the month of May, and anyone who joins the Lupus and Chronic Illness Challenge will also be doing 30 videos or blog posts, and you are welcome to share them in the links below mine so that I can also follow you. If you do have a YouTube channel, go ahead and post the link to that below as well so that I can follow you on your journey throughout this Lupus Awareness Challenge as well. If you are not a subscriber, I would really appreciate it if you would just click that subscribe button. If you've learned something from this video, go ahead and just give me a thumbs up. And again, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I look forward to being with you on this journey throughout the month of May for Lupus Awareness Month, as well as in the future. And I will see you again real soon. Thank you.